Hi, Scott.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. May I ask which link you used to get in just now?
I had a link on my Google Calendar, join Zoom, and I just went to my Google Calendar and I clicked the join Zoom meeting link underneath the
Got it.
Google Calendar invite.
Okay, got it. Did it force you to register?
No,
Okay. Have you registered before?
this is my first week attending this, so
Okay. I appreciate the 20 questions here. Um, we're trying to figure out the logistics here. We made some changes in the new year, and there were some folks that had a lot of folks, in fact, that had issues accessing the Zoom last week. In fact, nobody except for one person was able to get in. So I'm glad to see that you're here and some other folks are joining as well. So I think we're on the right track.
yeah.
Hi, Christine. Hi, Madhu. Hi, Gabriel. Quick question. What link did you guys use to access this Zoom?
Hey everyone.
Hi, Gabriel. I'm not sure if you guys heard me. Quick question. What link did you guys use to access this Zoom? Was there a link that was in a calendar invite or was it a link in an email?
A link in an email.
Link in an email. Okay. And you guys have registered for this before at some point, or did it force you to register again?
This is the first time for me, so I just registered.
Okay. Madhu, Christine, did you guys have to re-register or did you register at some point in the past?
I both. I had to register it in the past and then
And
it
then
made
it
me
forced you.
register again.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for the feedback here. We had made some changes in the new year and it kind of screwed things up in terms of people getting access. So we'll try to fix that. Hi, Joey. Hi, Ellen. Thanks for joining here. I think we have a few first timers. Um, let's just get started. I do this every week. My name is Eric. I've been a recruiter now for since 2013, and I've been part of the Never Search Alone community for I'd say almost about the past year. I've moderated two groups, so I'm familiar with the playbook, and and basically I've been doing this since I think April of last year. I just host a 30-minute sort of coffee with a recruiter, and it's just a chance for you guys to ask any questions, present any situations or contexts or scenarios that I could provide some insight into. In a former life, I was in software development, product management, and then somehow I turned into a recruiter in 2013 and have been working since then primarily with venture-backed startup and growth companies. Hired everything from executives down to senior level individual contributors. Um, Working across a number of different clients. I run a boutique recruiting firm. And so, happy to answer any questions you guys have. One thing I should say is that these sessions are recorded and they are posted for the public on our YouTube, our Coffee with the Recruiter channel. That was confusing for at least one person. Um, and so if you guys have an issue with that, log out, use an alias, don't ask questions you might be embarrassed about or disclose any information that you don't want the general population to see. This is not something I charge for, but I make it available for folks. That way I can just get sort of reach and distribution to share what I want to share or what needs to be shared with other folks out there so that they can benefit. Okay. So really I don't have any special structure or format. It's really just an AMA. So if you guys have any questions, just holler them out or drop them into the chat here. And if we get too many people, I'll move to a question board that I use. But for now, just feel free to chime in. And I welcome any discussion and input from other folks as well. If you guys have a perspective on whatever's being asked, I don't claim to be the end all be all authority, and I don't claim to represent all recruiters out there. My angle is really just to provide to provide the perspective of a recruiter, so I hope to do that, and hopefully it'll help you on your journey as you navigate this job search. All right. Any questions, thoughts? All right. Well, yeah. Any questions, any thoughts, any scenarios? I'm happy to dive right in with you guys.
I could kick off with like what I think is a straightforward but a somewhat silly question. But I bump into it enough where I would love to get your perspective.
Sure.
So my primary email address is woojoey@hotmail.com. It's something I had for a long time. I felt it's straightforward because it's just my name, no numbers.
You said Hotmail. Sorry, Joey. You said Hotmail.
At Hotmail. So I think
Okay.
you might know my question then, because plenty of people have like, oh, Hotmail is such an old account. Can you get a new account? And yes, I can. And it would have numbers and be harder to remember and doesn't match my LinkedIn profile. So I wonder how important is that? Like, do people really care? Because I'm like, really? Like, that's what people are looking at?
No, I appreciate the question. So again, I'll frame my response from the perspective of a recruiter, specifically me as a recruiter.
Yeah.
So most email addresses I see on LinkedIn or resumes are not Hotmail, right? They're not they're not AOL.com, right? They're mostly Gmail, they're mostly Outlook, right? Rarely do I see people use their current work email as their email address in their resume, unless they own their own company or business or practice, right? So if and when I do see an AOL.com or a Hotmail.com, for me, the way I interpret that is that, the person's probably been in the workforce, for a bit longer, and they're probably a bit further along in their career. That's what I kind of assume from that, right? And so, yeah. Again, I'm speaking for myself here. When I see an email address like that, that's what I think. That's what I perceive. But I also don't take any one thing to be the end all be all in terms of how I perceive the person, if that makes sense. So, but
Yeah.
again, I don't represent all recruiters, right? There's probably a lot of recruiters out there that look at that and be like, oh, this person's way too far along in their career, whatever, right? There might be some ageism or some stigma there. So,
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
I have a question for you, Eric.
Gabriel?
I'm sure you've answered this probably a few times with it. I'm a first timer here, so forgive me. But I'm curious to know about your order of operations when, like, let's say you're partnering with a company and, I'm a product manager, so this is going to be a product management, but when they're saying like, hey, like, we have a role for a senior product manager, like looking for someone with SaaS and B2B experience. Do you have a, order of operations when you start trying to source this candidate and, find ideal, fits? Could you walk me through just your thought process on like what are the first avenues you take from, the first ones to the things that, as a candidate, I should be thinking about the last places to be trying to throw my name in the ring, so to speak?
Yeah, sure. Good question. So as far as order of operations, typically when I'm working with a client, and they're usually clients because I'm not, I run a boutique, external agency. Excuse me. In contrast to internal recruiters that work exclusively, usually as an employee for a particular company, right? So, in terms of my order of operations, when I'm working with a client, and usually I'm working with a hiring manager, so I get to know the person pretty well, beyond what they express to me in terms of what they're looking for on a job description, right? And so I have to learn very deeply what they're looking for. Usually they have some lingering pipeline of folks that they want to present to me, and then I'll run them through the same process, right? Because a lot of times they'll reach out to me only after they've tried the search themselves and really haven't gotten much traction. All right. And so once I have a clear understanding of what they're looking for, every candidate that goes through the process or has gone through the process that I have access to becomes a point of calibration for me, right? And I really try to take advantage of that. And so I'll ask questions of, past candidates or existing candidates that are going through the process that I'm shepherding through, where they maybe fell short, or I'll ask the hiring manager where some of the candidates fell short if there's candidates that are in process, I'll ask them about the interviewer's interview style and process. So I'm getting feedback from all around, right? Because if they start telling me, oh, this hiring manager doesn't seem to know what they're looking for. Oh, explain that to me. And they'll start explaining to me. It's like, oh, okay, let me dig into that further. Because it's certainly possible that a candidate may be perceptive of a misalignment across the interviewing team that maybe I didn't catch, right? So I'm looking for feedback from all over the place. But just to get back to your point, in terms of order operations, um, once I get as I get more dialed, I'll start to promote the opportunity. You know, we promote the opportunity through things like LinkedIn and our own job boards, and then we take inbound from there, and that's pretty common right now. Um, Also, I'll do like sort of active outbound sourcing. So once I get a good sense of what we're looking for, I'll start reaching out to folks based on my understanding of what the profile of person that we're looking for that would be a good fit. So happy to entertain any follow-up questions. This sounds like I hope I'm getting to what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, this is really interesting. Did not ever consider an old already pre-existing pipeline from day one when
That happens. Yeah.
yeah, when so that's really interesting. And so generally speaking, are you going to be looking at, like, let's say the old pipeline, nothing really pans out there, and when the opportunity is first promoted or is first created, are you going to be just essentially just reviewing applications that come inbound, and then later on as a step two, maybe start doing outbound if you want to start doing that, but primarily inbound will be the first avenue to essentially be closest to the position posting.
Especially right now, a lot of job requisitions are getting a tremendous amount of inbound, right? It depends on the role, it depends on whatever the economic cycle, right? So right now we're in a cycle where a job is posted, there's a lot of inbound, there's a lot of interest. And so typically that's the fastest way for me to get exposure to candidates. Right? So usually I will look at that inbound first and start to prioritize that stack based on my understanding of the requirements. And then I'll start talking to folks, right? And then I'll start very quickly, even before I start talking to folks, I might just select a handful of folks from the pile and present them to the hiring manager and say, hey, what do you think about these 3 or 4 or 5 people? Give me some feedback on them, right? And that'll be sort of a calibration cycle that'll be really helpful. And then I can look through my stack and start to prioritize the folks that I think will be a good fit. And then I'll do some quick outreach and set up some calls with them, right? And then, so what might trigger me to start to do active sourcing is if I feel that the inbound is not at the caliber that the hiring manager or the team is looking for, right? And so it's a combination of just looking to see what's on the applications, on the resumes, and then just my own intuition about what the team is asking for, what the team seems to need. Sometimes what they're asking for is not necessarily what they need. Sometimes they have a hard time articulating what they need or what they think they need, right? And so it's part of my job is to read between the lines. It's also to bring some of those things to light across the team, especially where there's divergence in requirements. That's one of the biggest obstacles to getting a hire is when you have multiple, not necessarily decision makers, because usually the hiring manager is the decision maker. It's when you have multiple influencers to that decision or decision maker, but they have differing ideas of what the team needs. And so I try to flesh that out really quick, as quickly as possible, because I don't want to spin my wheels. I don't want to spin their wheels. I don't want to spin, the candidate's wheels. Right. So hope that helps, Gabriel.
Yeah, no, this is all really helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Eric. I have a follow-up question on.
Hi, Susan. Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
You're welcome.
Follow-up question and then another question. So just in terms of, are you working then exclusively with the hiring manager? So meaning there's, a 95% chance that you will source the candidate through one of these processes. Or are there other players involved? Like, do they have a couple of recruiters on the go? And then there's always like somebody comes to them directly, which is like what we're all often trying to do is like access the hiring manager through like our network or whatever. So I don't know what percentage, you know, typically land through you, or what can you say about that?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good question. The reason it's a good question because it's a good idea to get an understanding of, all the different like layers or sort of players that might be involved. Perhaps insulating you between the decision maker, again, the decision maker being the hiring manager, right? And so, in my case, I our engagements tend to be where we are working directly with the hiring manager. But that's not the only situation, right? It could be the case that a hiring manager or a company is working with multiple external recruiting firms. They might even be working with an internal recruiter or even multiple internal recruiters, right? And usually that varies, usually it varies based on the size of the company, where larger companies might have more layers that'll insulate you from the decision maker, from the hiring manager, right? But it's a good idea for you guys to get a sense of that because then you can understand kind of, maybe how to navigate that more effectively. And you could also understand sort of maybe the competing or aligned interests of the folks that are involved, right? So, for example, like an external recruiter like myself, my interest is in making the placement. There is a sense of speed to it, although we don't do most of the searches we do are more retained searches, so it takes a little bit of that speed pressure off. Contingency agencies or engagements, the recruiters are not getting paid or the firm is not getting paid anything until a placement is made. And so the dynamic that evolves in a purely contingent search tends to be one that's motivated by speed. In other words, if I'm a recruiter working on a contingency-based search, I'm highly incentivized just to throw stuff over. So it can become sort of a perverse kind of engagement, especially if the hiring manager or company is working with multiple contingency agencies. Their incentives can be perverted in the sense that they are just throwing stuff over to the hiring manager as soon as possible. Because the idea is that the folks that are there's this thing called claim, right? So if I throw Susan's resume over to the hiring manager, the fastest, right? And then the other recruiting agency throws Susan over tomorrow, I'm going to get claim on Susan, right? So there's a speed component there, right? And again, the recruiter's not necessarily incentivized to vet Susan out very well before they submit Susan. They're just like, okay, is she good enough? Okay, good, get her over, right? And so understanding the different players, you have contingency search recruiters external, you have retained search recruiters external, you have internal recruiters, which is pretty obvious. Usually they're W-2 employees of the company. They might be contractors. So an internal contract recruiter, you kind of, they're kind of external, they're kind of internal, just kind of depends. And then you may have multiple, right? You may have external recruiters, an external recruiting layer, you may have an internal recruiting layer. So there's different layers that might pop up. And then again, understanding sort of the relationships and what you're dealing with could be helpful in you navigating that situation most effectively.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Sure.
So my other question relates to the infamous green banner. So I started the year finding out that my position has been eliminated. So it's not like I'm job seeking in stealth mode, but I haven't turned it on. So I know there's a lot of like debate about this and so on and so forth, but I'd love to just get your honest take on how you view it, what you think about it, if it's helpful from a recruiter standpoint, if somebody feels like is tainted, that's what you worry about, right? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different opinions about it. I'd just like to hear yours.
You're talking about the open to work banner on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
So what that signals to me is that somebody is much more open to taking a call with me if I reach out to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it signals to me. And so in this environment, that's less of a concern because I know that even if people are happily employed, they're still more receptive to taking a call, right? Because there's this sort of anxiety out there, even among people that are happily employed, that they should keep their eyes out because they never know what's going to happen, right? And so because of that, as a recruiter, I feel that anybody I reach out to, there's a high probability that they'll take a call with me, right? So that's the value I see out of that is if I'm sorting through a big list, and if I see somebody that says, open to work, I just think, okay, well, they're more likely to take a call with me. So I don't know how important that is right now because I feel like everybody would take a call with me anyway, right?
Mhm.
So in the past, I mean, 3 years ago, if I'm doing a search, especially if it's a search for a sort of a niche um, experience or skill set, and I get a result set in LinkedIn, I would prioritize the people that say open to work, right? Because I know I can get them on the call like probably in the next hour, right? But right now it's like I don't feel like I feel like it's easy to get people on a call.
So it's not like it's an edge in this, but it's also not like it doesn't work against you.
I don't think for me, I don't think so. I think the concern is that people think that it might signal desperation or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I mean, again, like you want to make your LinkedIn profile focus, narrowed, niche. You want to establish yourself or present yourself as an authority in your craft, right? And um, so yeah, I don't know. If you guys, yeah, I don't know how much it benefits you to put it on there. Um, but I don't know that it takes away either. Sorry, I don't I don't have a clear answer on that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question about cover letters. How important are they?
Yeah. Again, I'll speak from my own experience. I've been conditioned over the years to not read them because they're just they're typically so generic. Um, and usually, in the recruiting processes that we've built for companies, I won't ask for them.
Yeah.
I won't ask for them. But if they ask for them, I would provide one, right? Because they're asking for it. So follow the process. Certainly if they have, if companies have a process, follow it. I would recommend that. Um, you know,
Mm.
again, feedback from a recruiter, like if I'm establishing a process, there's a reason why I'm establishing the process. And folks that don't follow the process, they're already sort of given a gray black mark, right?
Yeah.
Because you're making my job harder now, right?
Yeah.
So definitely follow the process if they've established one. And if they're asking for a cover letter, give them one.
Just
But don't make it generic. It's an opportunity for you to, customize it, hyper personalize it to the job that you're looking for. And
yeah.
especially with ChatGPT, it's so easy now, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to think too much.
Another question, how for roles that you're recruiting for, is there an average number of candidates that you see applying for these roles? Someone had told me like
I mean, just
hiring manager told me like
anecdotally, yeah,
500.
they can get pretty high, right? So what ends up happening is we post a job and you'll get a few hundred within a week or so. And if you leave it there any longer, it'll just keep growing, right? And so at some point we turn it off. And
Mhm.
so, so time is of the essence, in other words. So whatever job boards you're following, there is such thing as job postings getting stale. They do go through a life cycle. So when we post a job, there's a period of time where we allow for inbound. And if we start feeling like, oh, we're getting too much, right? We may turn it off, right? And so if you've seen job postings that have been, I don't know, there's an active job posting and it was posted back in October, right? Chances are that posting is a bit stale
Mhm.
and you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, right? It could be
Yeah.
that they filled the position and they forgot to take the posting down. It could be that they've had a number of failed recruiting cycles or a number of failed cohorts that they've got through the process. It could be that they're just slow rolling it, like they're super slow rolling it. It
Mhm.
could be that they don't even have a position open, but they're leaving the job posting up, I don't know, for whatever optical reasons, right? Political reasons, budgetary reasons, I have no idea, right? So you don't know why something might be stale. But if there's a staleness to it, like something, a job posting from back in the fall, um, doesn't mean you can't apply. But if you're really interested in the position, again, I would try to go to the side channels to figure out what's going on.
Okay.
If in fact because it could very well be the fact that they've just had a few sort of misfires in terms of previous recruiting cycles or cohorts.
Mhm.
And maybe now, fast forward a few months later, they're hyper calibrated in terms of what they're looking for. That could be
Okay.
the case. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Maybe follow on to your points about timing. So a lot of times these external recruiters will have their own website with the postings. So you're saying the employer though kind of controls when the posting is taken down versus yourself. I guess that was kind of my question as well. If I see a kind of a posting on a recruiter website, obviously earlier is better, but will a posting be taken down when there's already the process is already advanced where um, there's candidates that they're moving forward and it's kind of too late to be applying even if you still see the posting up. I'm just trying to get a sense of when it's too late to apply to a posting that you see up, particularly from a recruiter's website.
Yeah, so I think you bring up a good point because typically the companies themselves will have their own they'll have their own sort of job posting board, whether it's on their website or maybe they're using Indeed or whatever. So they have their own channels for promoting their own jobs typically, right? And similarly with external recruiting firms, they'll have their own channels for promoting their job descriptions as well, whether it's their own agency website or their own presence on Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever, right? And so usually we're not compelled by the company to post or not post. So usually a hiring manager or a company won't say, hey, you have to post this through your channels, or hey, you should probably take this posting down now. Usually they're not they don't dictate that to us, right? And so it's possible that a position could be filled, and it's possible that a recruiting firm didn't, they don't take they don't take their job posting down. The incentive, the motivation for that is that they might be building a pipeline. They might have other clients, for example, that are looking for the same type of talent, but maybe that job posting that they have for XYZ company, maybe the XYZ company has a more, I don't know, a stronger employer brand. So they're maybe able to attract some of that talent. But meanwhile, it's possible that the recruiting firm they're aware that position is already filled with the company, but they have another client maybe with less of an employer brand that they could put that funnel into. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine what could be happening if you see things like that. And I'm just throwing these scenarios out so that you could be aware of, like what might be happening or what could be happening, right? These third party recruiting firms, they're incentivized to build pipelines. And to the extent that a pipeline can be extended to other clients, there's economies of scale there, right? If I build a pipeline for one company for one position and that position gets filled, whether by me or someone else, I still have a pipeline, right? And it takes time to build that pipeline. If I could use that pipeline for another client or the same role with another client, I will do that, right? And it also gives the candidates that work with me a sense that if I work with this recruiter, they have access to more than just one one client or one opportunity, right? So there's a portfolio sort of effect there.
It makes sense. Super helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think I was kind of digressing there, but hopefully that answers your question, Scott.
Yeah.
Kind of on that same line, how would you suggest like becoming friends with recruiters, like reaching out to them, getting in their pipeline, getting in their network?
Yeah, yeah. Um, so selection of recruiters, right? You have to pick the right recruiter first of all, right? And usually recruiters they work based on region, they work based on industry, they work based on seniority, and they work based on function. So, uh, senior software engineer in fintech in the Northwestern region. Yeah, I think that covers it, right? So, so you have to find recruiters that sort of align with that, right? You don't want to work with a recruiter that's outside of those areas, right? Because they tend to specialize in that. Working with a recruiter that's outside of that for you or doesn't align with you in those areas, they're probably going to be much less effective on your behalf. So select the right recruiter that really aligns, and try to reach. I mean, obviously, try to reach out to them via LinkedIn if you have a mutual connection. That's another pathway. Engage with their content. A lot of recruiters are interested and incentivized by getting exposure into building pipelines, whether that's for an immediate role or an anticipated future role. And so, to the extent that you can help them augment their pipelines, whether it's for the short term or the longer term, those are things that recruiters are interested in. Recruiters are also interested in business development, right? So if you have ways or can even signal that you have ways to connect them with potential hiring managers or decision makers that could bring them in as a client, that is valuable to them, right? I would recommend working with full desk recruiters. These are recruiters that are not just sourcing and working with the talent, but they're also working with the business development side. They're working with the account management side. They have line of sight to the hiring manager, the decision makers. Um, and so when you're looking for a recruiter to work with, it's almost like you have to become a recruiter in a sense that you have to source the right recruiter to channel your energy into, in terms of, reaching out and building a relationship with them. Um, Yeah, and then obviously reaching out to them is similar to reaching out to, a hiring manager, any person you want to network or connect with. Sort of my recommendation again is engaging with their content. Is multi-pronged approach. Engaging with their content, commenting on their content, and make it a meaningful comment, meaningful, thoughtful comment, liking, what have you, reposting, and then reaching out to them in a meaningful way, right? And what I mean by a meaningful way is like, trying to understand who the person is and what they're interested in, and looking for ways that you can create or add value from the beginning. Uh, and you guys probably experienced this yourself, right? If somebody steps to you and they're looking and they step to you with in sort of the spirit of, I can help you, you'll be more receptive to that as opposed to stepping to someone and saying, hey, I need something for you, you know? So yeah, I hope that helps, Channy.
Any tips on identifying those recruiters, like the categorization that you gave at the beginning, like the industry, region, seniority, specialization or craft, like any shortcuts for like identifying people that match those criteria for you, for your area?
Yeah. Just a quick question. How many of you guys are using Perplexity? No. Oh my gosh. Okay. If there's one takeaway today, go start using Perplexity. It is amazing. It- I don't use Google anymore. Literally. I use Google maybe once a day. And if it's me looking for a link, like what's the name of that link? What's the link for that company, XYZ? Other than that, all my queries now are using Perplexity.
Hmm.
And so it combines basically the search engine with, like an AI, right? So it's amazing. Check it out. But to your question, Susan, as far as like being able to identify recruiters, like you could look at recruiting firms, you can look at LinkedIn, again, search for your region, keyword search. Most recruiters tend to specialize, or they tend to have a track record in working across those dimensions that I mentioned. And obviously there's a spectrum, right? So some of them will be more generalist, some will be hyper focused. And so you just kind of you figure out what works. But just be cognizant of like, finding a recruiter that aligns with you. There's even like Facebook and LinkedIn groups of recruiters. And I don't join those too often, but I know that I'm part of some. You could probably figure out a way to get into there and kind of see just what recruiters are talking about and things like that. Yeah, some of those Facebook and LinkedIn groups I found to be pretty helpful. Not even just for like recruiting or job searching, but just, you have a group of folks that are like-minded and they're trying to solve or address a certain problem or deal with a certain problem. And so you can try to tap some of those things. And like I said, just sort of a keyword search. The other thing too, I might say is, it's this push-pull thing, right? Like, yeah, you're going out there actively trying to connect with people, but also you want to make your presence online be one that will sort of attract people from afar as well, right? And so for you to do that, your resume or your LinkedIn profile, your online presence has to be one where, you're trying to be a bit more niche in terms of your expertise, your craft, and so forth, right? And so I guess what I'm saying is the whole candidate market fit statement in the NSA, right, is to try to make sure that you're focused in terms of what you represent, as a talent, as a candidate. Hope that helps, Susan. I'm sure there's things I'm missing that I'll probably think of later, but that's why we do this week to week. So don't be afraid to ask the same question with a different angle next week. We're at about time here, you guys, but I appreciate it. And
Thank you.
again, yeah, join next week, and we'll do it all over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a
All
lot,
right.
Eric. Take care. Bye.
Thank you guys. Have a good week. Bye.
Thanks, Eric. Bye.
Bye.